You have to know the past to understand the present, Carl Sagan said. This applies to so many areas of life, especially when it comes to self-development. Joining me is an internationally renowned teacher in the field of self-development, Denise Linn. She is the author of over 19 books in 29 languages, including the bestseller, Sacred Space. And Denise is here to help us understand how ancient and native wisdom can help us in everyday life. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You have such an incredible history and past. So many incredible stories you're going to share with us today. First of all, let's talk about your upbringing. You were raised from a Cherokee mother, right?
Right. I am Cherokee on my mother's side, and she was not so interested in the spirituality of her people, but she was really passionate about gaining political rights. She had been in World War II as a surgical nurse. She had worked to the point of exhaustion to be hospitalized a few times, and then she came back, and she wasn't allowed to vote. The blacks at that point, or Native African Americans, had the vote, but Native Americans didn't have the vote in all the states, and she was so angry. And she had these parchment papers, they looked like to me as a kid, and she would roll them out, and they were in small print, all the treaties that were broken. And she would hold this up and say, not one of these treaties was kept. And so she had a lot of anger. She wanted political rights for her people. Mm-hmm. And but she wasn't so interested in the spirituality.
Was she a leader in?
No, she wasn't. She was an individual with a lot of passion.
Sure. Well, it describes a lot of people.
And I think that
a lot of people.
And eventually she had some mental illness, and I wonder if part of that wasn't from having this rage, but yet there weren't the tribal traditions in ancient times. There would be tribal traditions that would really support someone who was going through a hard time emotionally. So she was...
Yes. I mean, there was broken trust at the core level, impacting her every moment, and that has got to be disorienting.
Yeah.
And to have that broken trust, broken heart, broken spirit, of course it would show up and manifest in various ways in her life. So what did she ever, you just watched her be passionate about something that could never be resolved.
Yeah, and she was also a scientist, and my father was a scientist, and she and my father were both atheists. And they said, if you cannot prove something scientifically, it doesn't exist. And you know, we often follow in the footsteps of our parents. So I wanted to be a scientist, and my sister went on to become a marine biologist. My brother became an astrophysicist. My other brother got involved in computers. So there's every reason to believe I would have become a marine biologist, which is what I was interested in. But something changed my life and really changed the whole trajectory. That's a big word. That is such a big word. The direction.
Yeah, I like that better.
Yeah, the direction of my life. And what that was when I was 17, I had a little motorbike, and I was so proud. I'd paid for it with babysitting money. Wow. And I went out on a summer afternoon. It was beautiful August, and we lived in Ohio in a farming community, and I was just putting between the corn rows, or the little road by the corn rows, and there was someone following me. It was someone I didn't know, I hadn't done anything to. And in a
You were aware of him?
No, not until he came alongside of me, and then he turned into my motorbike, and I kind of wobbled, and then he turned in again, and finally I fell off, and I skidded across the road into the gravel. And it was obvious he'd hit me on purpose, and I couldn't understand why.
Right.
Why would he have done this? And I was laying there, and I watched as he turned around, and I thought he was coming back to help me. And instead, he rolled down the window, and he pulled out a gun. And you know, Lisa, in those traumatic situations, how it seems like everything is going really slow.
Yes.
I'd never seen anyone even holding a gun. And I couldn't believe that he was aiming this gun at me. And then there was this loud explosion, and he shot me. And I laid there, and I was still conscious, and then I heard the sound of his door open, and it closed, and the sound of him walking on the gravel. And then I heard the sound of him cocking the gun again, and
was there any thought going through your mind?
No, I was just in shock, I think, and I heard the sound of a zipper going down. And evidently, this was a serial killer. And evidently, I'm the only woman who survived his attack. And something remarkable happened. And I opened my eyes and looked at him, and he's aiming a gun at me. And I wasn't angry. And you'd think I'd be angry, like, you just hit me, dude, and then you shot me. And I wasn't even scared. I probably was in shock. But strangely, all I felt was compassion. And it's the weirdest thing. Like, how can you feel compassion at someone who's just run into you and then shot you?
I don't feel compassion. I'm hearing the story.
Yeah.
It didn't happen to me.
And,
wow.
But I think that compassion saved my life because I just could feel his pain, weird. And his arm started to shake because I could feel like he really wants to shoot me, but he couldn't. And his arm dropped and he turned around and drove away. Then I was found by someone who was passing by and I was taken to an emergency ward. And when I was in the hospital, there was a point when the doctor said they'd lost me, I'd died. And I remember what happened. I remember leaving my body. And you remember, I came from an atheist family. I had no religious ideas about, when you die, you go to heaven.
Right.
But
you weren't looking for the light or
no,
anything.
Yeah. My dad said, when you're dead, you're dead. I said, well, isn't there anything afterwards? He goes, no, that's it. Your body gets recycled to the earth, but that's it. So that was my mindset. And I felt like I was in this black bubble, soft, and all the pain had subsided, and I just felt so free. And then as if that bubble burst, there was this incredible, beautiful, radiant light and music. And crazily, the music and the light were not separate from each other. They were the same thing. It's weird, doesn't make any sense, but they were. And there was a feeling of love. And it was different than the love we have here. Here, I love you and you love me, but we're separate, are we not?
Still, yes.
And there was nothing that was not love. And there was nothing that was not me. I felt like I was everywhere and everything. And it was so familiar. I knew I was home. This life seemed like a dream. You wake up in the morning and you've had the dream, and it's like...
And it's dense and it's slow.
Yeah, and you wake up and, that was just a dream, and it fades away. This was fading away. That was so real. I was home. I knew I'd been there before. I was home, and everybody was there. This is kind of crazy thing. Everyone was there, but we were not separate from each other.
Right, you're all the same, and it felt free, didn't it?
It was...
Boundless.
It was... There really isn't a word to describe it except home. And I wish so desperately that every person could have that experience, because I think inside of us, we all remember. We remember that place. And there was this river of light. I thought, okay, I get across that river. I'm never going back to my body. And I got about halfway through, and I felt like I got roped. Now, on my Cherokee side of the family, my family was involved in the rodeo. And in fact, my uncle was given the buckle, you get the silver buckle, the gold buckle from a U.S. president. So as a kid, I got to be like the little calf, and my cousins would rope me because they said, you're a girl, you get to be the calf. We're boys, we get to be the cowboys. But never mind the political correctness of that. But that was in the 50s.
Yes.
And so I felt like I'd gotten roped, and I'm getting dragged out of the river because I knew if I could get across that river, I would be really home. And I got yanked back into a body that was really damaged. I lost a kidney, a spleen, a drilling gland. Part of my lung was taken out, lots of damage till I'd never have children. There's still a hole through my spine because a bullet had bounced off my spine.
Oh, my God.
But something else happened. And I'm in the hospital, and I began to see things that to me were so weird because I saw light around people. And I would hear things, and I'd say, well, did you hear that music? People say, no. And then I got taken out into the hospital lawn, and I'm looking at the grass, and there's like light around every blade of grass. Every blade of grass has light. And then I can hear this sound coming from the grass, and it's not like a zippity-doo-dah. It's not like that. It's like a tone or a hum. And every tree, every person has this light and this energy. And I began to, and it was real. And no one else, I'd try to talk to people about it, and they'd say, well, no, that's just the drugs. But then I wasn't on drugs anymore. I'm out of the hospital. And I healed really quickly, too.
Did you have to go through surgery? And
Well, I had that surgery then, but the doctor said, it's a miracle you lived, and you shouldn't, because of all your injuries, you shouldn't live very long. But they were amazed at how quickly I healed. I believe that just being on the other side for, who knows, maybe, I had a strong body too. I mean, but to me, it seemed that something happened on the other side that really activated the healing force. And see, I think everybody has that place that remembers, and it's a matter of tapping into it. And you can activate a healing energy.
What you're speaking about is so, I completely understand, because I had this near-death experience as well, and what you're talking about in terms of the seamlessness and the nothing is separate.
So you remember.
Absolutely know that, and it's really hard to explain. There's nothing like it.
No.
Where everything is connected.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, your body, the trees, the air, whatever it is you're desiring, it's all manifest, all seamlessly. I can't find a word, but it's all one.
And it feels like we are living in this ocean of energy. And here we feel separate, but in truth, we're not. It's the words you use are so similar, and also not being able to find the words.
No, I feel like I didn't do it justice there, because there's not enough a way to explain. But the light is interesting, because that is how everything is connected. It was all connected through this beautiful glow. It wasn't like a beam of light, but it was
for me, there was nothing, there was no boundary to the light. It went on, it was forever.
Yes.
And I was forever. And you were forever.
Everything was connected seamlessly through light and sound. And
it was present. It's like, I remember trying to think about the past. I couldn't. I could not think of the past. It didn't exist. And then I thought, well, how about the future? And I couldn't. It was inconceivable, the future.
Wow.
And the only thing that existed was now. And scientists will say, well, that was the drugs, or you had lack of oxygen to your brain. But
how could we have the same experience?
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I've talked to people who've had near-death experiences, and they describe very similar things.
Yes, yes. And the idea of going back to the body is laborious.
Oh, God.
It is dense. And you think that, so, and now looking back, and it felt so three-dimensional. And that was so limiting. The body was limiting.
I don't know if you felt this, but I felt an ache to get back there, an ache to be in that place. It occurs to me that this is hard here.
Yeah.
And it's there's so much value in being here.
Absolutely.
But it's just,
it's so much easier.
I had this homesickness. I wanted to be back home.
Yes, I understand. And it's interesting, because I have a different understanding of death in that way. And I have an amazing appreciation for where you go after you pass. I recently went through the experience of losing my father, who was a scientist, and really did not have any reference of when your eyes close, the lights go out. He didn't have a reference point for it. He would love to have, but he was a scientist and believed in what physically he saw, and he worked with petri dishes and form and matter his whole life. And so when he was going through the process of crossing over and of dying, he would say that to me, what happens?
Wow.
And I couldn't communicate it to him until he actually did die. And the days after, I was getting these incredible feelings of, this is what you're talking about. This is what it's like. I mean, I was getting this clear message, and maybe it was wishful thinking, but I really felt my father expand beyond that sick body into infinite. Talk about quantum. And he was always loved quantum physics. The quantum. It's the absolute quantum. Wow, this interview totally went into a different direction. I love it.
Well,
as we do.
As we do. What's amazing is I love hearing about your journey with your father and the fact that he was a scientist, because when my father was dying, I said, well, because I wanted him to know that, hey, it's pretty cool. It's going to be great. And he said, no, Denise, when I die, that's it.
Yeah.
I don't exist anymore. And I kept talking to him about it because I think that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
And he said, all right, if the Mormons are right. Now, who knows why? I think he had a friend who was a Mormon or dated a Mormon in college. He says, if the Mormons are right, I will put an M in the sky and let you know.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, it's a deal. The Mormons are right. You're going to put an M in the sky. Yes, I will, but I know you're wrong. So there's not going to be an M in the sky. Well, a couple of weeks after he died, I'm driving a whole van full of people. I'm a teacher, and I was taking them to a retreat. And I'm just putting along, and I hear someone in the back, and I didn't tell anyone about this, except my husband, but, and someone yelled, hey, Denise, pull over. There's an M in the sky. And people are going, yes, it was a perfectly blue sky. There's no clouds, and there's an absolute perfect M in the sky. And people said, pull over, and they're jumping out, and they're all trying to figure out what the M stands for. And I have a daughter named Meadow, and they said, maybe that's about Meadow. And each person is coming up with, and I'm like, oh my God. And I loved it because I'm right.
Wow, my goodness. Well, I mean, the journey that you've been on, and you went and became a teacher of this work subsequent to this incredible experience that you went to. I just want to circle back. Did they ever catch the guy?
They did.
Okay,
and until that time, I believed in the justice system. I really thought that it was fair. I thought when you're in court, you tell the truth. And the bullet from his gun matched the bullet in my body. The paint from his car matched the paint that had scraped on my motorbike. So he wasn't from the area, but someone who actually knew him, he was from a whole other area, saw him behind me, and I identified him. Now, wouldn't you think that would be a slam dunk?
Yes.
It wasn't. We're in a tiny little town in Ohio, just a few thousand people, and it was a big case because, other women had been killed. So these pro bono lawyers from New York, a whole team of them, came in with their suits on and their briefcases, and they said things about me that were so not true. They said that I was having sex orgies with people of other races. I mean, it's a tiny town and it's white. I mean, and I'm a virgin. And they said I was taking drugs. Well, I didn't even smoke cigarettes. I was a cheerleader. I was a majorette. I was a class officer. I mean, I was like one of those corn-fed good girls.
Yeah.
Not that it's bad to be a bad girl, but that's what I was. And this was in the newspaper. And then they said, the worst thing they said I was a communist. Well, in those days, that was really...
They were really trying to discredit you.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, to get him off, because they were these, they were lawyers, and I realized that the law wasn't about truth. It's about, in that case, they didn't, it wasn't about money, but it was about fame, and money and fame. And he got off, and he went on to kill other people. He got off, and in the newspaper, they had all these stories about me. I literally got rejected by a whole town. Because in those days, they believed what was in the newspaper.
Adding insult to injury.
And
That's so interesting because the story you told about your mom was the same experience where the treaties were broken,
I never made that connection. And I had a suicide attempt after that because I had nobody. I mean, I moved into a little trailer. I didn't get to college right away. I'm eating cat food, trying to save up money to go to college. And at one point, I thought, I can't go on. I mean, all these people believe these things about me that aren't true. And this guy who shot me, they let him go.
So how did you possibly pick yourself up and move on from this experience? And I still want justice to prevail, but you never saw that, did you?
No. I've come to understand other things later in life, but no, I didn't. But, and this is going to sound weird, but I'd moved to another town. I was working in a truck stop. It was kind of a greasy spoon. They were called greasy spoons in those days. But, and I thought, I am going to kill myself. I have nothing. I have no one. I'm eating cat food. And trust me, all the ingredients look really good. It does not taste good. And so I decided, and I know this is going in a whole different direction, but that's all right. That's the way life is.
Yes.
And so there was this river, the Maumee River. And there was in Ohio, and it was November, and it was cold, and the snow was kind of dirty at that point, you know, with the little bits of dirty snow. And maybe it was 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'm walking from my little trailer that's by the freeway. I'm walking across this park to get to the river, to get to the bridge, to jump off the bridge into the icy cold water to kill myself. And as I'm walking through this park, there's someone, a guy, sitting on a bench in the park, and his head's kind of hanging down. Now, normally, you would never go up to a man in a park at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I thought, what can he possibly do to me that I'm not going to do to myself in a few minutes? I don't have much to lose here. And I sat down and I said, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "No." And I said, "Well, what's going on?" Well, he told me, he was on the way to the bridge to kill himself.
Oh my God.
Now, at the time, it never occurred to me that this was a weird coincidence. I just thought, oh my gosh. And so I talked to him, and I found myself saying to him subsequently, "Listen, you're young, you're going through a hard time, but you can make it. You can make it past this." And he's like, "Yeah, I can? Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm feeling so good that I get up, and by that time the sun was starting to rise, and all that dirty snow all looked kind of pink and glowing.
Yes.
And I walked back, and years later, see, I don't know. Anyway, I believe in angels. I never believed in angels growing up, but I believe in angels. And I have to believe that that was an angel or the most spectacular coincidence. I've never heard of anyone killing themselves off that bridge in that area. But the fact that he was there.
Two people would meet in the same night.
It's the same night on their way to go kill themselves. So I've had some remarkable experiences like that.
Yes, you have. And through this whole experience, how did you learn to turn this journey of yours into teachings for other people?
Well, it was a slow process, and it probably started when I began to see that light and hear that sound, and it was real, and there was no one to talk to about it in this small town in Ohio. But as I began to explore, I found that in Native cultures, that's not unusual. That idea that everything is connected, that we are a part of all things. And I knew I had Native blood in me, so I began to explore and travel, and I spent time with the Zulu in Africa, and I spent time with the Aborigines in Australia, and I spent time with the Maoris. They call me Fetu Manama Otorengi. They honorarily adopted me. And the Maoris in New Zealand, and the Zulu call me Nogu Kini. They give you names when you, and I began to spend time with those in Native cultures and elders, and I began to understand that we are a part of all things, and everything exists inside of us. And that's what began my journey. And I also wanted to understand about healing, because I'd had so much damage done to my body that I thought, if I could understand about that healing process, because I had healed so quickly, and I could share that with others. And eventually I became a healer.
How could you ever say that you were connected to this serial killer, or that we're connected to a president we don't like? I mean, how could you say that?
You know, I've got a foot in each realm.
Okay.
I have been tear gassed and pepper gassed a number of times and been on marches, so I've got that kind of like
warrior.
Well, make a stand. If you see injustice, stand up.
Okay.
And then I have this part of me that's in the spiritual realm that understands that there's value in every experience, that understands the power of that deep quietude within, that when you can find that place inside of yourself, it actually makes a difference in the world. And it's hard, because part of me, I feel very judgmental, but I also know the instant that you judge someone, you lose the ability to influence them. The instant you judge someone, you lose the ability to influence them. And that's hard, because we right now are in a nation, we're judging each other.
Yes.
There's a line down the middle, and whatever side you're on, the
Very
other side
divided.
is wrong.
Yes.
And
yes.
it's hard not to react. But I do know that the more I judge the others, the less likely they are to see my point of view. the less likely they are. I think you can make a stand
True.
without judgment. Yesterday, I got an email from someone I'd gone to high school with, and she's on the other side, and it was this like passionate, she wanted me to spread the word. I'm thinking, you actually don't know who I am if you are sending me that email. And instantly, I wanted to make her wrong. Instantly, I wanted to send something back and go through all of her points, and rah, 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 rah. And I thought, wait a minute. I will never change her mind. She will never change my mind. So what value does it have, me going on the offense? What if I found commonality? And it's hard. There's some people like, I don't want to have anything common. But I do know that the more you judge someone, the less likely they are to hear you. So,
that makes, I mean, a lot of sense. There's a lot of people who watch this show that have relatives that don't have the same view they are, or they live in a red state and they have blue beliefs, and it's painful. Families are being torn apart because it's such a strong political atmosphere. So you're saying don't judge them.
you can be the sacred observer. You can observe, I think that's actually not factual, but as soon as you get that, you
Yes.
are bad, I am good, and you are bad, you have increased the schism. And it's hard because, well, we know we're right.
You've lost, though. You've lost the battle right there because you've let your emotions take over.
You know what I've done to help, because, you know, I am active and feel like we have to stand up. We cannot just watch things go down. But I've started to turn on Fox News.
Yes.
And because, and my husband's like, why would you ever listen to that? Because I've said, I want to understand the other side so I can have compassion. It doesn't mean that I'm going to stop making steps to make a difference, but I can make those exact same steps without the rage. And rage, you know what they say, like resentment and rage are like swallowing poison, hope the other person dies. It damages you. And if someone is feeling peaceful, they're feeling joy, I'm much more likely to hear them. If they're raging at me and they're telling me how wrong I am, like even if I believed half the things she was saying, I wouldn't go along with it because it was so judgmental.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And that's a very strong point, is to have compassion for where they're coming from. And if they try to engage you and try to pick a fight with you, if you go to that place of compassion, then there's nothing for them to stick to or to hook on to, essentially. And you can get along a lot better, or stay away from the political conversation.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think of that moment when the guy was holding that gun at me and he really wanted to shoot me. And in that moment, if I was angry, if I was judging him, if I was afraid, I'd be dead. And in a horrible way, because the things he'd done to the other women. But in that moment, of who knows where it came from, having compassion. And it's one of the hardest things to have compassion when someone is doing things that are horrible or inappropriate or wrong.
What if they're still at large, though? I mean, didn't you have that fear that he would find you?
Yeah, I did. And you know, it was so.
Did it ever get resolved?
Well, here's what was interesting is I've taught in 25 countries, and I would get asked to teach in different places that I would go, but no one asked me to teach in the United States. And I'm thinking, I'm American, why am I? And I was getting big crowds in other places, like huge crowds, like 1,000 people in other countries. And I thought, why not in the States? And I closed my eyes to tune in. I thought, you know, I found this subconscious fear. Because he had.
You don't feel safe?
Yeah, I felt so unsafe that subconsciously, I think I kind of put a buffer on the States. And I believe that when you find a fear in yourself, take a moment to step forward. And it's hard. And I thought, I am willing. I made that conscious choice in that moment. I am willing to do, because in the other countries I was in, I was on, you know, like a lot of media, a lot of television. And so I was afraid of being on media in the States. So I wasn't just doing things, it was like the mass media. Probably less than an hour after I made the choice, I am willing to be on media in the States, I got a call from the Oprah show. It was so, and I was scared.
Yes.
And I was like, well, as long as I don't have to be about shot. And I'm thinking, oh, God, he's a killer. He won't watch the Oprah show. But it was, and I think often you'll find that when you are really willing to say, yes, I will face my fear, you actually get the opportunity to face your fear. And
Everything went okay?
yeah,
Obviously.
Yeah, and then I was on again, so yeah, I took a stand.
That's
it was
amazing.
hard. It was scary.
Yes. Well, I mean, you had to really walk into that fear and then clear any type of clutter or thoughts or anything that you would have in your mind. And that's what you talk about now, is this incredible ability to create and manifest different things in your life by clearing space. And we're not just talking about clearing a room, you're talking about clearing mental space and financial space and relational space all around. And this is what you've become so incredibly popular for talking about, is clutter clearing.
Well, this is strange. Most of my training was in Native cultures where we learn ceremony and ritual. And the reason why ceremony has been around since the beginning of humankind is because it works. And the thing about clutter clearing is it is I call it modern day alchemy. It is a kind of a ceremony. And that I've just taken 70,000 people through an online program. And what was remarkable was over and over again, people would say, I found my purpose. I didn't know who I was before this. And you think, how could that be? You're just moving a bunch of stuff around. But when you move stuff around, it is a kind of a ceremony. And in that, sometimes even mystical things happen. It's remarkable.
It creates alchemy.
It does create alchemy.
Yes, and I noticed from that experience that I had, that near-death experience, is that subconsciously I'm constantly looking for that space again. Always, in everything I do.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I love doing this so much, and doing interviews and doing the Aware Show, is because this is my everyday attempt to reach that space again. There's a moment in an interview where seamlessly we connect and we become one. And it happens in every interview I do.
I love that.
So that's probably why you do ceremony, is that you find that level of alchemy where that light and sound and oneness occurs in that moment.
It's beyond life as usual.
It's the only way you could recreate it.
It's like there will be moments, and crazily people can find this with clutter clearing too. There will be moments where all of a sudden you begin to sense what is really important in your life. You begin to sense that the spirit, if you will, and you begin to sense more clarity on your direction. And it's also this sense of, life isn't a one-shot affair. That sense of being infinite, that sense of being connected to all that is. I love that.
Yes, and it gives other people watching right now permission to do the same. Let's take a look here at the program that Denise Linn has on clutter clearing.
Just to start off, what is clutter? If you don't use it and you don't love it, chances are it's clutter. It's clogging your life. In no small way, your destiny is dictated by what you have around you. In every moment, the objects you have around you are influencing you, affecting your energy field. Also, you can have time clutter, you can have information clutter, you can have relationships clutter. Now, why do you want to get rid of clutter? To the extent that you can live a clutter-free life, you can experience clarity, relaxation. In fact, a lot of research has been done that equates people who have a lot of clutter with stress. Your stress levels go up the more stuff you have, the more stuff that is clogging your life. If you go back a few generations, we had a lot less stuff. And yet people had time to relax. People had time to enjoy life. As you embark on this journey, because it's not just about the stuff you have or even clutter clearing your time, it's understanding the deeper issues. Because maybe you've done this, maybe you've clutter cleared a bit, and then it all kind of piled back up. It's because you weren't getting to the source. Beneath every single item of clutter in your life, if you go deep inside, you'll find there's a reason. Maybe it's fear for the future. Maybe it's failed relationships. Maybe it's buffering against life, if you will. Maybe it's hiding who you are. There's a whole lot of reasons why people have clutter. And it's so important to get to the source, to understand why do I have that clutter? What is it communicating about me? And how can I transform my life by dealing with clutter? There is immense, immense value in clearing your clutter. I look at it as a kind of ultimate journey. It's an ultimate journey to let go of what is not serving you in life. What are you holding on to? What have you been carrying with you? Maybe for decades, maybe even for lifetimes. There has never been a more important time in the history of our planet for letting go of those old patterns, habits, beliefs that are holding you back. Some say, oh, we're in a time of great darkness. The greater the darkness, the greater the light. You've never had an opportunity like this. I'm going to suggest that you consider clutter clearing your life. At least once in your life, take the time to evaluate, who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? Through physically moving the objects in your environment, it can transform your life. I am not just saying this. I have seen this over and over and over again. People are surprised. They think, well, how could it possibly be that just moving a few things and changing a few things in my home could completely transform my life? In no small way, it's like a ceremony. Ceremonies have been around since the beginning of humankind for the simple reason they work. It's what I call modern day alchemy. When you step into your home and begin to clear clutter with the intent that your life changes, it happens. It's not simply about, okay, I'm going to take these books and I'm going to give them to Goodwill. It's not like that. It's when you physically take an object with intent and prayer, with the intention that as that object moves out of your life, you allow fresh new energy in. You literally are creating the space for miracles. Then it happens. Then everything changes. It seems miraculous. And it is, actually. And even if it doesn't make sense, some people say it can't be that simple. It can be. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this information with you.
I understand what it means to be passionate about sharing information with someone. So how do you do that? How do you clear, let's talk about time. I mean, you can do clutter clearing on time, space, finances, energy. Let's talk about time.
You know, when I lived with my grandparents, the way we washed the clothes, that kind of dates me, was she had one of those washboards.
Yeah.
And then you'd wring it out,
Yes,
and then you'd hang it
my
up.
grandmother had one too.
Yeah, and we'd milk the cows, and then we'd go like this to make the butter. So we've come from that to, we have dishwashers and washing machines and dryers, and we have all of these modern conveniences that were supposed to be time-saving. Yet, when I look at that time with my grandparents, they had so much more time to rest, to recoup, to renew. We have so little time. Used to be people would hang up after 12 rings. Now, the average time when people hang up on the phone is 1.5 to 2 rings. Whoop, they're not home. And it's like life has, we've gotten so much stuff. 1 in 11 people in the United States has a storage unit. 1 in 11.
Wow.
We've gotten smaller families but bigger houses, and yet we have so much stuff we can't contain it. And one of the things that we have lost is time. In addition to our homes being stuffed, our time has gotten stuffed, and we have lost so much.
We have containers and container shipments of coming in, of products from just coming in, and where does it all go?
And I think we're trying to fill a hole with it. It's like if I buy enough, if I move enough, if I do enough, I will fill this hole. But the truth is, the only way the hole gets filled is in simplicity and in silence and in renewal of relationships, in being present with life, being out in nature. That's what renews it, and we've lost that.
We also feel like we want to feel significant by overscheduling ourselves or being too busy.
Yes, it's like I'm an important person.
I'm significant.
Yeah, I am very significant because look how
not
full I am.
replaceable.
And and people say, how you doing? Oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm overwhelmed. What they're saying is, I am so important.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I've been there too. So
Yes.
I mean, I'm not like, oh, I'm so above that. I've been there too. Oh, but I've really come to realize that when I do that, it's because there usually is something inside that feels like I'm not enough.
Right.
And if you can address that, like, oh, I'm feeling I'm not enough, so I am filling that with this, you can begin that journey of self-exploration and self-healing.
There's many reasons. It could be that you were only loved because you felt that you were busy and you know that was the only way that
Or you were
received
productive,
love. Or that you hated being bored so much that you wanted to run as far away from that as possible so you feel busy. You know, there's so many different ways, but that you don't see a lot of messaging and marketing on simplicity. I mean, on that just making life just still again. There's technology to speed things up, there's technology to make you more efficient, but not on being still.
And here's what's amazing. It doesn't need to take much time. For people who are worried about time, literally 2 minutes. If you can sit for 2 minutes, which is almost impossible for most people, like set a timer, and you don't listen to music, don't think about anything, don't do your planning during those 2 minutes. Simply, and if you can, like in the morning, just face east, the place of the rising sun, and just be present for 2 minutes. It can make a huge difference.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, what about the stuff, the clutter, the things?
Okay. There is a lot of stuff represents fear. People say, well, the most common thing I hear is people say, well, I haven't needed this for 10 or 15 years, but I might need it someday. What they're saying is, I'm enough now, I have enough, but in the future, I might not have enough, I might not be enough. So it is a negative affirmation. They are affirming lack in the future. And if that's the reason they're keeping that stuff, they should definitely clear it out. Remember what I said about fear, like, face it. And usually what happens, and this is interesting, you haven't needed it for 20 years and you get rid of it the very next day you need it. This is on purpose. There's a place inside of us, our little survival gremlin that says, okay, I told you you needed it, you have to hang on. But if you know it's going to happen, you realize that the energy that you gain by not having that is so much more than that one time that you needed it.
The freedom that you gain by not having that. Because then you have to adapt and you have to be okay with letting it go, not needing anything. Yeah.
And it's funny because from my perspective, everything in your home is reflecting something about your life. And if you have things that were given to you by people or relatives that you do not like,
oh my goodness,
every time you walk in, subconsciously, your mind is going, oh, that was from Aunt Mabel. She was mean to me.
Well, this lace and my grandmother made the quilt and the guilt.
Well, yeah, it can be.
It's all given with guilt.
Well, yeah, if it's someone who you don't have a good relationship with, that is going to diminish you. You should step across the threshold. Your energy should expand. And then there's the guilt. Well, you know, someone it's been in the family, someone has to care for it. Actually, that person probably wouldn't want you to have that. If they're gone, they probably wouldn't want you. They're in heaven. They don't want you to hold on to that. If it's diminishing you, if you don't like it, here's what you do. You take a picture of it, you put it in an album, you write the story about it so you can keep the memories but get rid of the stuff. And they've done a lot of research with people who have a lot of stuff often have health problems, and when they begin to clear the stuff, they start to have more expanded health. In Scandinavia, they started this program where when people were getting very ill and going to die, they would have people go in and clear their house out so their house would be cleared before they died, to help the relatives. What they found is when they began to clear the house, people started getting better. And I just thought, isn't that interesting? It's like too much stuff can clog your energy. It can clog, physically, when you walk across that threshold, you have that stuff and it feels heavy.
Yes.
That, you don't want that. You want to feel great.
What about stuff from a lost loved one who, my mom, for example, is in the house where she and my father lived for 40 years. And she still hasn't cleared the closet.
No.
And his stuff is still on the side of the bed he slept on.
Yeah.
And I know that's going to take a while, but I don't even know where she would start. Say it's a year from now.
Do you know, everyone grieves in their own way. And I know how to talk to someone if it's their journey, but if it's someone else's journey, she will do it when she's ready.
When she's ready. The clothes, the pants that he has still laying on the side of the,
Oh, God.
I know.
It's so sad.
So at some point, the energy, I mean, I've been watching grief, and grief really needs to be expressed in moments, and expressed and expressed.
And it cannot be pushed, or it cannot be suppressed, or it can't be said, okay, it's been a year now, that's it, on with life. People take different amounts of time.
Yeah, it takes time. It's like it just needs to release itself and have there's a wonderful, I don't know, it was the Akin, I don't remember the tribe, but it's in Northern California, and they have a ceremony for clearing grief, and it's to blow on a canoe, where the canoe goes out into the lake, and they place the loving, wonderful things of the person on the canoe, and then as a community, they blow and they wail and they cry, and that energy of grief is used purposely to move the boat across the water. And it's a beautiful tradition to give the feeling of grief energy. And we've talked about so many things, so I want to have an opportunity for you here to take a look at this great video that Denise did. This is, sit down in a quiet place and just go through this exercise of clutter clearing. Take a look.
I've got a great exercise for you so you can begin to see some of the effect of doing clutter clearing. Now, in Feng Shui, there's various areas of the home, a room, your desk, that equate with various aspects of life. So I'm going to suggest right now you imagine you're outside your front door. So you're right outside the front door, and now visualize and imagine the farthest left-hand corner of your home. Maybe you live in a one-room apartment. The farthest left-hand corner of your apartment. That area equates with your abundance, your prosperity. I'm going to take you on a really quick inner journey. It's just quick, but I want you to look and see what is in that part of your home. If you find any clutter in that area of your home, I'm going to suggest that you move it out, you clear it, and then notice the difference in your abundance. Okay, close your eyes. Go ahead, just close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And the reason I'm having you close your eyes and take a deep breath and relax is often when we're relaxed, we can sense things that we can't normally sense if we're only thinking about things. You're going to the source. You're going to your soul. You're going to that deep place inside of you that knows, that absolutely knows the truth of your life. The soul loves the truth. You're sinking into that place. So with every sound you hear, with every breath you take, just allow yourself to relax. Maybe you can hear the sound of the wind through the pines that are right over there. Just imagine that wind blowing through the pines. I see white, fluffy clouds just scuttering across the top of the pine trees. With that image I'm sending to you, feel yourself relax even more. Imagine now that you are moving to the far left-hand corner, the furthest back left-hand corner of your house. What is in that area? Just scan it, just notice. Imagine that you're there. Imagine the objects. Do they take your energy up? Do they take your energy down? Are they neutral? Is there anything in this area you do not need or you do not love? Just keep looking, keep scanning. Is this area dirty? Does it need to be cleaned? Are there objects in this area that need to be fixed? Imagine now that you're clearing out anything that could be clutter. Just visualize it gone. Imagine now you're fixing anything that needs to be fixed. Imagine now you're cleaning anything that needs to be cleaned. And if there's anything in this area that could be a metaphor for a lack of abundance, move it on out. Fill this area with light. fill this area with joy. Imagine yourself feeling and being so prosperous and so abundant. That's good. That's excellent. You're doing so well. And you can go ahead and gently and easily come back now. I love sharing this exercise because over and over again, I hear people say, I did what you said. I went into the wealth area, the prosperity area. I cleared out the clutter. I cleaned it. And it's amazing. I got a check in the mail I didn't expect. Amazingly, I had to pay less on my taxes. And I don't understand it. Part of me thinks, how could that possibly be? But I've seen it happen over and over again. And what it does is it underlines the mystical energy of clutter clearing. Whatever is blocking you, whatever is stopping you from expanding in your career, whatever is blocking you from having the most glorious relationships, whatever is blocking your health and your vitality, there is a correlation with the objects in your home, the objects in your life. Shift those objects and you will shift, transform, and change your life. I guarantee it. What I love about this is as you go home to home, working with people, not only do their lives change, but the home that you work with, it literally is like a pebble dropped in a still pool whose ripples are felt at the farthest shore. Over and over again, those homes that have been cleared, that energy radiates out and neighbors begin to change. Grumpy neighbors become happy. Dilapidated house gets fixed. I've seen it so many times. It is because we're working with energy. I encourage you to consider joining me for this journey. It is really an ultimate journey. It's a journey to clear out, let go, heal that which has held you back, but at the same time, open the space for miracles to abound in your life.
That is a great exercise. Thank you so much for that. Lots of stuff. We've gone through the gamut here. I mean, but that's just, apologize, but that's what we do. We talked about past lives, we talked about near death, we've talked about clutter clearing, we've talked about ancestral patterns, and all this is, and it has a theme here, is that we are all connected. And there is an evolution that happens with all of us through all that we do that just helps our lives get better every single day. If it's clutter clearing, if it's releasing habits and patterns, old memories, it all just helps us evolve and develop ourselves and have better relationships, I think.
Yes.
Can you figure out a theme for this whole interview?
I think the theme was we enjoyed being together and we had a conversation. And that's probably, in many ways, as good as life gets, is you connect with others, because I think the juice of life is relationships. And you hear each other, you share with each other, and I love that.
Yes, and there's also a big, huge theme here about decluttering our lives,
yes,
decluttering
and letting
our
go,
thoughts.
letting go of anything you don't need. If you don't love it and you don't use it, it is clutter. Whether it's a relationship, whether it's your time, whether it's the stuff in your computer, if you don't love it or use it, chances are it's diminishing your energy, it's pulling you down. And sometimes you have to be like a ninja and ask. Maybe there's someone who's been in your life for a long time, but every time you walk away, you feel terrible. And you just, why do you keep doing it? Well, we've always been connected. You know what? Life is short. Kind of say very graciously, kind of take a step away. And it's the same thing with your stuff. The more stuff you have that you don't love or use, it's going to drag your energy down. If you want to get clarity, you want to have joy, you want to have vitality, let go of anything that does not juice you, bring your joy.
Right, but it also brings in, when you clear that space, it brings in energy for something new.
Yes, absolutely. It makes space for new energy, for new relationships, for
new jobs. I can't tell you how many times. And do you set an intention before you clear the space of what you want?
It's really important. If you just go in and start moving stuff around, it's not going to do a lot. But if you go in and you clear, even if it's just a drawer, and there was one time I got a call from a man, and it was someone I knew, and he said, I'm calling to say goodbye because I'm going to commit suicide. Most people, they'd say, it's a cry for help. I knew this guy. I knew it was not a cry for help. And I said, tell me about your drawers. And he goes, Denise, what are you talking about? I said, tell me about your drawers, because I knew I couldn't get there in time. And he said, well, they're messy. Why? And I got him to tell me about one particular drawer. I said, I am coming to your house. When I get there, that drawer needs to be cleared. He's like, huh? And when I got to his door, I knocked, and he opened the door, and he goes, what did you do? He goes, I feel so different. And it was that intent, and my intent too, was as he cleared that drawer, as he was releasing what he didn't need, subconsciously things inside of him were shifting and changing. It's powerful stuff. If you clutter clear, you can clutter clear with intention for abundance, for example. You can clutter clear with intention for vitality and health. And if you hold that intent, you don't have to hold it the whole time, but right before you do it, this is the purpose, this is my intent. More often than not, kind of seeming miracles occur.
That gave me chills. That is very, very powerful. Yes, and you gave him purpose, and it cleared clutter, and that's incredible. Yes, I've done this on my desk several times, and every time I clear, because the desk collects things, and whenever I clear the desk and just have wood space on the desk, new jobs come in, new ideas, projects come in. It happens every single time I do it, and yet I forget. So it's a good thing to remember to do. Well, thank you again for all of your amazing wisdom.
Thank you so much.
I so appreciate it. And thank you so much for being here and participating in the show. And Denise has shown us how to declutter our lives and ultimately how to declutter our world. If you'd like to watch more of The Aware Show, please check out my additional shows on freespeech.org, or you can connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at Lisa Gar Host. I am Lisa Gar, and until next time, I invite you to stay aware.